Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's such a beautiful day. Thank you for watching us right now. Of course, I'm your host. My name is Chicky Pablo, and it's such a pleasant day, diba? Ang ganda ng sun, the way that it has risen this morning. Welcome to another interesting topic in our Life to the Max series. Ayan, it's great to have you with us again. We started out this year with our talk on mental health entitled The Battle of the Mind, Depression, Anxiety, and Suicidal Thoughts. If you missed that, you can go visit our CCF Life to the Max platforms on our Facebook page, Instagram, and YouTube channel, as you can see it on your screen. Ayan, dyan mo kayo pupunta. And also, please don't forget about joining Zoom. Diba? Later on, we will have breakout rooms. You can join your groups. If you still don't have your own group, you can go to room number 1. Ito ho yung details on the Zoom. Okay, so don't forget that. That's important. That's also fun. So today, we have prepared something for the parents and grandparents out there. Sino kayo? We will be talking about parenting and versus grandparenting. Talaga bang verses, or do they help each other? Okay, so without further ado, I will now introduce to you somebody who will be joining us sa ating pag-interview sa guests natin. Okay? Kasi we have such an interesting topic today, very intriguing. In fact, strict ang parents, spoiled sa lolo and lola. Nakaka-relate ba kayo? Kasi ako, I am a parent of 4 children and I can truly relate because yung mga bawal sa akin, biglang binibigay ng aking mothers. So my mom is, syempre, the lola. So andyan yung mga chocolates, andyan yung mga eat out. My goodness, pati yung cellphone na bigyan at an age na hindi ko naman gustong mabigyan ng aking kids because to me parang too early, ganyan. But that's the love of the grandparents, di ba? Mamaya we'll ask kung ganun din ba yung guest natin sa kanilang grandchildren. Do they also spoil or do they discipline? Okay, but before anything else, I will introduce to you a friend of mine. She is a wife, a homeschooling mom, a lifelong learner, none other than Lorraine Ledespa Calpo. Hey, Lorraine.
Hi,
Good
Chicky.
morning.
Thank you for bringing to life this exciting conversation. Kasi talaga, with everything you've shared, it's a pleasant day and ang dami nating matututunan and we are looking
Yes.
forward to the discussion later. But right now, a bit of kwento rin to answer your question kung ang parents ko rin ba strict or they are also spoiling me like my grandparents. Nako, sa akin, the difference is so distinct also sa parents rather super uptight yung upbringing. Talagang every nitty-gritty they observe, they want to do things in certain ways. And then my grandparents, sobrang lambing. And even sometimes, honestly, unreasonably sweet. So talagang may mga bagay na nakukuhang bawal. And also,
Yeah.
it is the same for sa kids ko because I have a son and one on the way. And we do have
Ooh.
differences with my parents in terms of their parenting, but with all of these memories unlocked, we are looking forward to what we will be learning today because we will be with a well-loved couple for the Life to the Max community because this couple is a pair of seasoned Christians, and of course you will have the honor and the floor to tell our guests and our participants today more about them.
All right. Pero bago ko introduce sila, congratulations, you're on the way. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl?
Not yet.
Yeah.
14 weeks right now.
Oh, okay. Exciting adventure. All right. So friends, our guests for today, wag na natin patagalin. They're none other than Pastor Roy and Tita Sasa. Woo! So let me tell you a little bit about them. They have been married for 45 years. There they are. Married for 45 years and so in love pa din, right? So they have 5 children, all boys, 4 of whom are married. They have 4 lovely daughters-in-law and 6 grandchildren. So Pastor Roy has been a full-time CCF pastor for 22 years, while Sasa is a helpmate to Pastor Roy, who is currently head pastor of CCF Metro East Hub 4, which is comprised of 3 satellite branches, ang CCF Feliz, CCF Gateway, and CCF Nangka. They both also serve as the ministry heads of Life to the Max, which is a healing ministry under CCF Ministries Incorporated, through which we have the pleasure of bringing to you podcasts of relevant life topics, such as the one that you are streaming right now. Nako, but, Pastor Roy and Sasa simply want to be known as grandpa and grandma to their 6 grandchildren, who fondly call them Dampa and Dama, respectively. Ngayon ko lang narinig yon. Mamaya tanong natin ang kwento behind that. They adore their grandchildren. Their grandchildren's a source of great joy for them. Good morning, Pastor Roy and Tita Sasa. Welcome.
Good morning also to everybody.
Good morning, Chiki and Lorraine. Thank you for joining us here. We're excited to just impart our experiences as parents and as grandparents.
Yes, we'd also like to greet the Eastern Police District.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and also from our guests abroad.
Ayan. Wait, Lorena, before you start, I'm really confused. I'm really, want to ask, saan ang galing yung Dampa and Dama?
I guess from our first grandchild, he couldn't pronounce grandma or grandpa. So, na-shorten, Dampa and Dama.
Dampa and Dama. No, it's
Oo.
just a shortened version of grandpa and grandma.
O yun. Unique siya, ha? Okay.
Yes,
Sige.
because he couldn't pronounce grandpa.
Nice.
And
Alright.
there we have it. Ganyan talaga ka-endearing ang grandparents to their grandkids, that they always embrace what their grandkids would say or do for them and about them. And really, right? So much to appreciate. But as Pastor Royce shared, they are excited to impart what they have learned so far. So atin na pong unpack what you want to impart, because we have a lot to learn from the both of you
Yes.
and your family. And we'd like to hear as a get-go, how important is it to bring up your child with the importance of really thinking about the child's development into their future as an adult?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Lorraine. Bringing up a child is so important because there are so many kinds of influence today. You've got
Yeah.
social media, YouTube, Instagram, and so on. Now TikTok, and if we are not intentional in bringing up our children or grandchildren, they will be more influenced by the world.
It's also very important, no, because it can either make or break the 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 child as a person in his future endeavors in life. I mean, it will really impact his moral values, especially the values of the family. That's what he will carry with him forever. No? And his good behavior, and of course, his respect for others in life. And most of all, it will affect his view of God.
Mhm.
Yeah. Whether God is real, no, or relevant, ma-affect talaga. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and with this start of us learning how important it is to bring up your child because it makes an impact into their adulthood, what do you think plays a factor into the different approaches parents take when it comes to child rearing? Ano ba po yung mga from your observation and your studies and your personal experience or the experiences of others shared with you, what influences parents to bring up their child in a certain way?
You know, there is no manual on parenting, no? So we, as Christians, we get our beliefs and our manual from the Bible. Now, because there are several, factors really affecting us, it only depends on how we brought up our children. That will influence the way they bring up their own children.
Yes, and how we bring up our children is also influenced by how our parents brought us up.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yung influence talaga, no, malakas. Malakas
Oh,
siya,
very.
whether physical, emotional. So can I just say, pasingit lang, Sasa, I love your hair. Ang ganda ng,
Thank
ang
you.
ganda
Thank
ng
you so
bagsak.
much.
O, mai-influence yung mga grandchildren dyan. Okay. Ano ang shampoo at conditioner? Ayan. Okay.
Sige,
So the
tutok kita.
so my next question is, meron bang model or template for raising up a child?
There is no particular one model for raising up children or even grandchildren. However, there are biblical guidelines on what we can do and cannot do, what is best for the child, and that really depends on how we also view the world.
And there are models and guidelines, of course, in various books that can help in being personal and intentional. But for me personally, the Bible would be the final authority. No, it
Yeah.
says train in Proverbs, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Hmm. Talagang the Bible should be yung core, no, na talagang pupuntahan natin for how to navigate ourselves in life. But also kanina, you mentioned that there are books. So in the books that you have read, are there parenting styles? Different styles ba yan? Or one size fits all ba yan? Or if there
Oh,
are parenting styles, can you tell us what they are?
oh, definitely there are parenting styles, and they can be classified into maybe five categories. All right, one would be the very very authoritarian.
Mhm.
That's the dictator,
Mm-mm.
or something like military, like you do this or else. No? And the
Mm-mm.
other one would be the overprotective parent, the helicopter parent, we call them. No, it's
Mm-mm.
like, oh no, I'm gonna protect them everywhere they go. I need to be there. And then there's the permissive parent who is very on the extreme side of the pendulum, very
Mm-mm.
liberal, too liberal. Anything goes. Sige, I'll just give you anything you want. And then there's the absentee parent who is not always there. And it's the yaya or the Lola, whoever
Mm-mm.
rears the children, raises the children. But the best of all would be the authoritative parent.
Versus authoritarian.
Yes, versus authoritarian. The authoritative is the one that has the balance
Mm-mm.
of all. He can
Yeah.
say yes very, very gently but firmly, and he
Mm.
can say no in the same way.
Uh,
Wow. Ang dami
Zaza
pala.
and yeah, Zaza, can you share with us a bit more on what you shared to be seemingly the most effective? Because you said it's the last one. It's the was it the authoritative? Am I correct?
Yes,
Yes. So
authoritative.
a
Yeah.
little bit more on
Um,
the authoritative parenting and what makes it more effective or more helpful than the others mentioned.
Well, they take more effort in creating and maintaining a positive relationship with the child, hindi negative, no? And then he explains the reasons behind the rules that he
Mhm.
sets. You know, he just doesn't set rule, no, because I said so, or because it's like this.
Mm-mm.
It's you explain why.
For example, if you tell your child, bawal ang tsokolate, di ba?
Mm-mm.
Also,
Explain
the
why.
authoritarian parent will say, bawal ang tsokolate because I said so. The authoritative parent will say, bawal ang tsokolate because we're about to eat dinner or we just
Mm-mm.
had merienda, later na. So
or
we
or
explain.
it's not good for you. Too
Mm.
much is not good for you.
Yeah.
Too
Mm-mm.
much sugar, you know.
Right.
And
Oo.
it takes, most of all, it takes the feelings of the child into consideration.
Yes. Mm.
So one
Mm.
must make clear that as parents are still in charge of them.
Oo.
Okay? But of course, parenting styles differ with as our children grow up in age. Okay.
Oo. Nako, sabi mo nga kanina, no, na yung authoritative also considers the emotion of the kid, no?
Mhm.
So, we friends, we also consider your emotion. If you have questions, please type them in the chat box. Don't be shy. Free consultation with Pastor Roy and Sister Sasa. Okay, so don't be shy. Write your questions. Keep them short, no, para we can flash them on the screen later on. Okay, so at this point, we would like, nako, nakakatakot na to for Pastor Roy and Tita Sasa. Kasi, i-invite na natin ang anak at daughter-in-law to the picture. So, ito na nga sinasabi ko type your questions sa chat box. Okay? So, friends, let's meet Roel and Rabbi Felipe. Hi, Roel. Hi, Rabbi. I will just give a little introduction of who you are, so all our friends who are watching us will know who you guys are. So Roel Felipe is 39 years old, married to Rabbi Felipe for 13 years. They are the proud parents of a 9-year-old daughter who loves dragons and dinosaurs. How interesting, hindi Barbie. He is a designer, programmer by trade, a casual musician. As we can see, mukha talaga siyang musician. Ano kaya ang instrument? Okay, baka feeling ko guitar. Feeling lang. And he spends his free time playing with his daughter Una. He grew up in a Christian family, but like everyone, found his own walk with God much later in life. Rabbi Felipe is 37 years old, the youngest of 5 siblings and wife to Roel Felipe. She is the mother of 9-year-old Una Tala Felipe. I love the name. She raises her daughter up to be a strong and independent woman, much like herself. Rabbi is a working mother. She owns and operates a hardware retail store. Grabe! Proving every day that leadership, strength, and command are her tools of the trade. Welcome, welcome, Roel and Rabbi. Kaya pala, dinosaurs ang gusto ni Tala eh. Kasi hardware retail store itong si Rabay. Hi!
Hello. Hi. Hi. Hello, everyone.
Thank you
Tama
for
ba?
joining us. And
Tama ba
thank you for
instrument mo, guitar?
Yung instrument ni Dad, actually. Another example of grandparents influencing children. My dad plays the drums.
Oh!
I play the drums.
Oh, wow!
Oh,
Grabe,
wow.
Pastor Roy, hindi mo ka. Headbanger ka ba when you play the drums?
Correct.
Wow!
His hair was much longer than mine.
Oh wow, that's interesting. But thank you for joining us because it's important for us to hear the son's perspective. Syempre, alam natin na when it becomes a versus, right? We'd love to hear from both sides. And syempre, we want to learn also the way your parents have learned. And I'm sure they have learned from raising you up and now also having Rabbi along the way for you. Now, Ruel, sa son's perspective muna tayo. How
Mhm.
would you describe the parenting style of your parents, Pastor Roy and Zaza?
Safe zone
Uh,
to. Safe zone. You
Same
can say
zone. Okay.
Unfiltered.
Like Dad said naman kanina, the parenting styles are not it's not a one thing. It's not like you're always authoritarian or always permissive. It changes depending on the child, depending on the relationship, depending on the age. So the style is never locked in stone. It sort of changes. As to the style of my parents, of mom and dad, Pastor Roy and Sasa, I would say there's a joke among the siblings and I. If you want to do something, you ask dad. If you want to buy something, you ask mom. So I think that
Ah,
speaks to their styles.
okay, mas kuripot ang ama. Mas galante ang ina.
And
Correct.
no, super supportive talaga ang moms kapag shopping related. Oh, di ba?
Yes.
I think I'm the same, but do you have any reactions to that, Pastor Roy and
Ay,
Zaza?
teka, okay lang ba, Lorraine, before we ask for their reactions, alamin din natin itong si Rabay. Kamusta ba parenting style ng parents niya?
Yeah, oo,
So,
before we get reactions.
Mm-mm.
Mine kasi is ano very authoritarian ng tatay ko.
Mm.
And my mom naman is mix ng authoritative and permissive. So yeah, I think it's a good mix.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mukhang, so walang spoiled sa inyo. Kasi
I know.
nakakatakot ang
No.
daddy.
And they couldn't afford it anyway.
Okay. O sige.
O, di
Oh,
ba?
your
There is
question nga pala, Lorraine.
Yeah, there is a blessing in limitations. So it does work
True.
out for
True.
our good, right? So
Mhm.
thank you for also sharing, Rabbi, and we hope that your parents would also continue to appreciate how you are as a mom. But right now, Pastor Roy and Sasa, any reaction to the konting kwento of your son and na si Sasa daw ang mas supportive kung may kailangang bilhin. So any input to that, any slight any little kwento that goes with it?
Yeah.
Well, they would play us against each other.
I
Our
knew it.
children, really,
Kita sa mukha ni Roel. Hindi, joke.
they would play us. If you know, if they have a lakad, then I'll say, you've been going out too much. Why don't you just stay home or come back? If you go out, you come back early
Ah.
at this so and so time. And then they would go to their dad and ask about going out. And he would
Ah.
always say yes.
Mm.
And
Oh my God.
as late as they want. So, wala na akong magagawa.
Yeah.
Submit.
I
Kailangan
only learned
mag-submit.
I only learned much later that our children were manipulating us. Ganun
Yes.
pala.
They
Well,
would play.
capitalizing.
yeah.
Ah,
Pastor Roy, a follow-up question to that. How much later nyo na-realize?
Oh,
Yeah.
that is a very good question, Lorraine, because we did not know any of these biblical principles when the children were young. So I was very authoritative when it comes to money, and Sasa was very authoritative when it comes to uh, going out. So we were baliktad. I was very permissive about going out. No,
Mm-mm.
so we had different styles, and we did not communicate well with each other, my wife and I, what kind of parenting style we would adopt. So we
Mm.
would quarrel even because why did you say yes, that's too
Yeah.
expensive. So now, or she will tell me, why did you allow them to go out, it's 12 o'clock, they're not yet home. So it became a conflict between husband and wife. So that's why I think this session is very important, because especially for young parents, we need to know how to become better parents while the children are young, which we did not know, and we made many mistakes.
Yeah. Eh, lalo na ngayon, no? Ang mga kids, they start their parties at 11 at
Yeah.
night. Alam mo
Mm.
namang ipauwi mo ng 12. Cinderella. Talagang argument yan. Tama ba,
Mm.
Roel? Nung time ninyo ni Rabay, nung nagde-date kayo, 12 o'clock ba inuuwi mo na si Rabay?
No comment.
For
Sabi
fear
kasi yung
that,
safe zone.
for fear that it would incriminate you.
Time book. But yeah, that's about right. During our youth, 12 o'clock was very early. And mom
Yeah.
and mom especially was very, no, you have to be home by 12. Mom, the concert doesn't start till 12.
Correct. Nakaka-relate ako kasi magkaedad tayo eh. Hindi, joke. Okay. Okay, moving on. Let me address this question to Pastor Roy and Sasa. So, as Christian parents, how do you teach others how to raise their children in a biblical way?
Well, instilling a love of God, no, through prayer. And of course, sharing the gospel. But as Roel said, even if we did share
Mm.
one-on-one, the gospel with each of our children, they can accept, they have the tendency, to accept Jesus in their minds and,
Yeah.
in their hearts, but they don't still fully understand what it's
Yeah.
about. So they
Mm.
need to find God on their own terms.
Yeah.
As Roel said earlier on, that he found God on his own terms.
Yeah.
So we mentor, disciple them, and encourage them to study God's word, give them a good example, and then give them time. All right. One thing I learned late in life is asking forgiveness from them
Mm.
if we hurt
Yeah.
them, when we hurt.
Kasi 'di ba, oo, 'di ba in the older generation, the parents never ask for forgiveness because they're
Never.
correct, 'di ba? Whether wrong sila, itatago na lang nila 'yon because baka
Mhm.
mawala yung respect ng children. At
Yes.
least that's what I was told. Pero yung pala, this is important also. Is that what you're saying, Sasa?
Very, very, very important. Because if we teach them how to say sorry by our model, by our example, they will also copy that.
Yeah. So I think what Sasa is saying is developing a very close relationship with your children such that we can ask forgiveness if we hurt them. And again, we learn this very late in life. And then on discipline, one of my mistakes while bringing up the children was discipline because the Bible tells us discipline, though God disciplines those he loves, but I would discipline my children in anger. If they did something wrong, I would get angry and spank them, but I would do it in anger, which is not biblical and not very helpful. We should discipline in love, not in anger. So I'm sure well has many stories about that.
Pero mukha namang talagang super love pa rin kayo ni Roel even though there were times when you disciplined in anger. Tama ba, Roel?
Oh
Express
yeah.
your love.
It's not. I don't think it's quite as bad as Dad makes it out to be. Even back then, even before Dad says he knew all of this, there was still a point to the discipline, and I took that with me when I'm disciplining my own child.
Speaking
Nice.
of disciplining your own child, we have a twofold question. This is first for Roel, and then the next one will be for Roel and wife Rabbi. So for Roel first, as part of the next generation parent with children of your own now, what have you learned from your parents, Pastor Roy and Sasa, when it comes to raising now your own kids? And then for both of you, Roel and Rabbi, what are the parenting styles that you apply together, having learned from the things that your parents got right and got wrong, and the biblical principles that were shared today so far?
In terms of what I learned for parenting styles, I would have to say everything. Like everything my parents did to raise me up, I took and applied to how I raise up my child. There are differences, of course, because of the generation, the culture, the society, and of course the personal quirks of my daughter. But the overall concept and principles is basically the same. How my parents raised up me up is exactly how I want to raise my daughter up, with those slight nuanced differences here and there.
Yeah.
Like for example, one of the biggest differences I would say is I encourage my daughter to argue with me.
Yeah.
Ah,
So she says, why not? Yeah, I don't get mad at her for saying why not.
But to some people, it might come off as
For a lot of parents, it
disrespectful.
might be disrespectful.
But to us, it's actually normal.
Yeah, it's like,
We encourage her to really argue.
oo,
Right? If she
oo.
has a point, you have to let us know.
it's like just the other day, she can't watch YouTube, and she was telling us, if I can't watch YouTube, you shouldn't watch YouTube either.
Ay, ganon! Grabe!
Tama yan. So we have to,
Ano yun?
well, that's because you're a kid, you don't know what's good for you yet. We do. So like that.
Tama naman siya, di ba? Kung hindi siya pwede,
She has
aba,
a point.
kayo din.
So
Wow.
things like that, when she argues back, I don't,
Mm.
just listen to what I said. No,
Yeah.
I listen, I hear her out, and then I offer my own counter arguments,
Mm.
refuting her arguments.
Mm. Yeah.
Oo. So you teach her to respond or to what's the right term? Make an appeal. Pero
Yes,
is it done respectfully naman?
yes,
It should
always
be.
it
Yeah.
should be. So we have a
Oo.
rule in our home, and I took this from dad. I took this from my parents. We have a rule. There are only three things. But of course, now she's 9 years old. Di ko na siya pwede paluin. But back when she
Mm.
was 4 or 5 years old, there are only three things. I tell you, there are only three things that will get you palo. One is disrespecting. Number
Mm.
two is disobeying, like flagrant disobeying. I told you not to do that. You do that. And number three is
Oo.
lying. Those are the only three things that will get you palo. Everything else, no palo.
Yeah. Major on the major, minor on the minor. Ika nga. Yeah.
Oo.
Mhm.
Oo nga, ako rin namamalo din ako eh. Kasi 'di ba, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Mm.
So what's the
Mm.
effect of a spoiled child in a society? 'Di ba?
Mm.
So you're also helping your country when you discipline your children.
But that's another tangent.
Oo.
That's an entire other topic.
Yeah, another topic, mahaba-haba 'yun.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm.
So, ito naman, Pastor Roy, Tita Sasa, no? Um, what can you say about parents? Ito kasi, isa pa lang yung child nyo, di ba, Roel and Rabbi?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So, this question is for Pastor Roy, Tita Sasa, no? What can you say about parents who play favorites sa children nila? Does it really have an effect on the kids and family dynamics?
Definitely, it will breed resentments and
Mm,
deep resentments within the others. But it's, I don't know, I I, I wouldn't say it's normal,
Mhm.
but there are some
Tendencies.
tendencies to play favorites,
mm,
okay, or to have a favorite.
Mm.
However, to show favoritism outright, I wouldn't really encourage
Mm.
it because it will result in sibling rivalry. Then they'll, compete with each other.
Mm.
And then
yeah.
also jealousy. Um, Take the example of Cain and Abel in the
Mm,
Bible. No,
mm,
of course I cannot get into their story, but that was sibling rivalry
A-
right there,
And jealousy and envy.
and
Yeah.
envy, jealousy, and one ended up what? Dead.
yeah,
Mm.
correct.
Yeah.
Oh,
So playing favorites, I think it's a what? It's normal for parents to have a favorite, but to show it, we need really to be very careful.
mm, yeah. I wonder, no, kung anong parenting styles ni na Adam and Eve. Kasi paano naging ganon si Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
Okay, so ito question. How did you handle such, issues in the family? Let's say may nag-away. Ikaw ba, Roel, sino bang paborito mong kaaway? May paborito ka bang kaaway? Madami
Oh,
kayo eh.
yeah. Meron. Paborito ka.
Paano kayo nag-aaway? Suntukan ba talaga? Or kurutan? Ano ba?
I invoke
Wrestling.
the fifth again.
Wrestling? Wow! Wrestling hanggang sa paano ba yon, Pastor Roy? How did you handle that? Tita Sasa, paano kayo nag-police sa kanila?
Well, this is just a short incident. Remember,
Uh-huh.
Roel and his brother Ao would be constantly fighting, and they would even come to fist blows. Magsusuntukan talaga sila.
Talaga.
Mm,
They are the closest in age.
yes.
So
Oo.
Ruel is the second, and then Raul is the
Mm.
third son.
So I saw them quarreling with each other, and they were coming to magsusuntukan na talaga
Many
many
times.
times. So we bought boxing gloves.
Ang galing.
Okay,
Tama.
you want to fight? Okay, here are boxing gloves. But
Um,
it was a managed fight. So sabi ko, Roel, suntukin mo si Ao one time. And then Ao, suntukin mo si Roel one time. So they
Oo.
traded blows one at one. And then after about 2 or 3 minutes, oh, have you had enough? O sige, bating na kayo.
That's a true
After
story.
after magsuntukan, merong duguan ba do'n? Wala naman.
Wala naman.
Wala naman.
Also worth noting, Ao and I are also the closest to this day. Like
Aw,
we are best friends right talaga.
oo.
Madalas din talaga kami mag-away before.
Wow, galing. I think gano'n yung nangyayari 'no, 'pag sa bata pa sila yung magkaaway, habang lumalaki nagiging closer sila. That's so
Mm.
good to hear. Okay. Kayo naman ano, Rabbi, I'm just curious, if you do have another kid, how do you plan to hindi. Sige, wag muna other kid. Nakita ko yung smile mo. Sige, tatanungin ko na yung gusto mong tanungin ko. Sino favorite mong kaaway at paano kayo mag-away? Kurutan? Kagatan? Sabunutan?
Siguro yun yung perk ng youngest kasi bunso. So I'm
Aha.
really like shielded away from that. So
Mm.
ako yung errand kid sa bahay namin noon while growing up. So yun lang yung pinaka-purpose ko. So I don't really, get
Walang
to
away
fight with
sa'yo.
well, yung mga older brothers, sisters ko, I'd see them kasi talagang balyahan, ganon. Pero
Oo.
ako, kumbaga parang, oops, maliit,
Wala
bawal.
kang
Wala,
sinigawan. Wala
wala
kang
naman.
wow,
Wala.
Wala
really?
naman. Oo.
Girl.
Youngest kasi si Rabay, youngest.
Yes.
Oh, malaki ba age gap dun sa second to the last?
Yeah. Yung kuya ko kasi is 4 years
Ah,
older.
yeah.
Mm.
And then yung sinundan na niya, 3 years, and then 2, ganon.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Ang
So,
galing,
medyo
one.
malayo lang talaga.
Oo, buti yun. Yes, Lorraine, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Kasi having heard this, na nagre-referee pala noon si Pastor Roy. And that they have to, you have to go with the season, right, of your kids as they learn their emotions, how they manage them or not, and how they need to probably get into each other's skin talaga. Pero Pastor Roy and Sasa, please share with us what do you find most difficult, or if you could like quickly look back, what were the biggest challenges in the various life stages you've already walked with all your kids, like with what time we have right now, from your experience, what would be the biggest challenge, and how were you able to get through it and pick up from it now, where you are also leading other parents into bringing up children in the way that they should go.
Yeah, thanks, Lorraine. Siguro my biggest challenge raising up the kids was building a very good relationship with them because, as I said earlier, nobody told me how to be a good parent. I would just copy my own parents, and of course, they were not perfect. Also, I was not perfect. I didn't know any better. So, in my mind, my role as a parent was just to provide, no, to
Mm-mm.
work and to provide, which is very far from what I know now. I could have been a better parent. Kaya lang, natutunan ko late na. The children were teenagers na. So I think the biggest challenge really is developing a close relationship with your children. Time, relationship, di ba? And like Roel and Rabbi are encouraging their daughter Una, communication, di ba?
Yeah.
You can argue with me. So, in my mind, when the children were growing up, basta sinabi ko, sundan nyo. Kundi, hindi ko kayo bibigyan ng
Right,
allowance.
right.
Yes.
Tama.
And if I may add, the hardest of all were their teen years.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Oh, yes, their teen years. They were too old for spanking and too wise for consequences. Uh, and they were
Yes.
easily influenced, by their
Yeah.
peers
Yes, peer
and
pressure.
social media. So,
Mm-mm.
there.
I can totally relate to that. Yes, because I'm also raising a teen. My oldest is 13 now, turning 14. But we'd
Ako,
like to hear still from Roel and Rabbi, since you are raising your daughter, right, to be eloquent and respectful in the manner of how, diba, that we can also kasi that's a good way to learn. You discuss. We don't just
Mhm.
shun them. So from your
Yeah.
end right now, and in the way that you are also applying the things you've learned from where your parents nga got right or wrong, paano naman sa inyo ang pag-handle ng challenging parts, and which part or parts are there in your current season with your daughter?
Miss Universe yung question eh. Mag-isip.
I think it's harkening back to the start of the stream when you were talking about different parenting styles. I think the most challenging part is walking that very very thin line between authoritative and permissive, authoritarian and permissive. You know, there has to be things where you have to be an authority. Yeah, I'm the parent. I said so. I know better because I've been through more than you have. Listen to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Versus being, sige, okay lang yan. You can do whatever you want. Can eat whatever candy you want. It's okay that your tummy will ache later and you can't sleep. You know? So you have to walk that fine line. And there's no rule because the line changes. It's a waving line.
Yeah.
You know, depending on the personality of your daughter, on cultural factors, the line will forever be changing and shifting.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think that's the challenging part. Kasi hindi naman isang character lang yung bata eh. So, as
Yes.
she grows old, nagpapalit.
Mm-mm.
Lalo pa, syempre, pag nag-teenage yan, we are actually bracing ourselves na, nako, yari tayo. So, we have to be, we have to be flexible na may point na magiging authoritative ka, authoritarian ka, and permissive. So, you have to, know how to mix it all together all at once.
Yeah.
And there's no recipe.
Ganyan.
There's no recipe.
Yeah. And then, magpapalit din yung character ng bata. Kasi, minsan, uuwi yan. Galing sa school. Aba, iba na naman ang alam niya. And then, magugulat ka. Saan mo napulot to? Ganyan-ganyan. So, you have to be ready also with answers. Ganyan. So, I think yun yung challenging part ng pagpapalaki ng bata.
Yeah. Kasi nag-iiba-iba eh, no? Yung stage
Hmm.
nila. So you have
Yeah.
to adjust. Grabe. Okay. So in this one, Anupom, yung palo, from Clowie, I guess that's her name, no? Ano po yung palo pag directful, dishonest, lying, and disrespectful? And what's the other? I've missed it. Okay. Klaseng palo.
Disobeying.
Okay. Disobeying. Okay.
Mhm.
So, Chloe, that's dishonest, lying, disrespectful, and disobeying. Yun yung four things that deserve palo. Pero paano daw yun? May difference ba yun? Like, if it's lying, one time. If it's disrespectful, twice. May ganun
It's
ba?
the same. The reason why we set rules, like so, disrespect, disobedience, and lying, is because when you do make them palo, they have to know why. That's super important. You cannot just thank them kasi galit ka. They have to know why, and the child has to understand. Otherwise, there's no use. Bakit mo siya
Yeah.
tinawag? Not
Hindi siya
learning anything.
matututo. Yeah.
So the rules are there, and they have to understand this is happening because it's a consequence. We agreed way before. You agreed that we signed the contract. Now, if you do this, I'm gonna make you
Yeah.
palo. I'm not making you palo because I'm mad at you. I'm making you palo because that's the rule. That's the consequence. We agreed on that as a family.
Mm.
Oo. Right? Dapat ine-explain talaga eh, no?
Yeah.
You know, when you hit the age of 18, 19, nako, iba na. Iba yung takbo din ng utak ng kids. And you can't spank them, di ba? So, masingit ko lang, kayo ba, Pastor Roy, o on the spot na tong si Roel, bulong nyo na lang yung sagot, tayo-tayo lang nandito. Noong 19 years old, etong si Roel, at merong ginawang hindi okay, paano nyo siya hinandle?
Which one?
Actually, Roel was the most difficult of the 5 boys. Maraming kalokohan niya.
Secret lang yan,
Speaking of favorites, kanina we were talking about favorites, di ba? Ako yung favorite pagalitan.
Favorite pagalitan. Ikaw kasing mag-gimmick, no? Kitang-kita sa itsura mo,
Oh,
gimmickero ka eh.
But he
How
has
did you
the-
handle?
but he has the softest heart.
Yeah.
Kita rin.
Kind of hard. And then, I guess bringing up Ruel because again, I did not know any better. So even when he was a teenager, pinapalo ko pa rin. Yung pala, there was no more effect, hindi na tumatalab yung palo. So,
Yes.
it's very, very important for us parents. What discipline will really be effective? Diba? If they're 13, 14 years old, hindi na pwede palo. Diba?
Right.
Consequence na. Use a
Mm.
consequence.
Cannot go out or whatever, no allowance. I don't know. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I may add to what we were talking about earlier about dishonesty, disobedience, and disrespect, those are the only three that, you know,
Lying.
lying, that we can
Sorry.
really discipline our children for.
Mm.
Everything falls under those categories.
Yeah.
But take note, if an accident happens,
Mm.
by
Mm.
chance, they spill a glass of water,
Mm.
Iba na
alright?
yun. Oo.
You cannot.
Because it's not their
It's an
fault.
accident.
Mm.
Do you understand? You cannot really shout at them or really get angry.
May nabasag.
Oo, you can just say, well, it's okay, it's an accident.
Mm.
Unless they do that on purpose,
Intentional.
intentionally, then that would be disrespect. Under disrespect.
So kahit na ba, in other words, what you're saying, Tita Sasa, is even if kakadeliver lang ng latest iPhone mo at nabagsak nung daughter ni Uni Tala sa sahig yung iPhone at wala na talaga, hindi mo pwedeng paluin. Kasi accident. Okay. O,
The dad
ready
will pay for the iPhone.
ready na kayo dyan, baka mangyari yan. Okay. So, I have a question. What do you consider naman as the most rewarding or fulfilling moments as parents? Pastor Roy and Tita Sasa.
Well,
Mm.
for me, it's the traveling together, the out-of-town trips,
The excursions.
the traveling together.
Mm.
At first we used to go to local, Baguio, the beach, etc. Now, we brought the whole family out. I mean, all of us, and we're quite a lot. So it's for me very, very fulfilling and rewarding.
Spending time with the
Mm.
children and the grandchildren.
Yes, but of course, we always end up being the yayas and the yayos of our grandchildren.
Which you love to do,
So
diba?
yes, when our children want to go around the new cities,
Oo.
we
Iwan
are,
yung mga apo.
yes, the apostles.
It's apostolic ministry.
Yeah. How about sa inyo, Rabbi and Rabbi, you? What's the most rewarding?
I think lalo pa ngayon growing up, nasa point na yung bata na masarap na siya kausap. Yung gano'n. So, she'll make kwento about her day, about her school, kung ano yung mga natututunan niya. And just seeing her, na happy and content. Tapos, most of the time, ayaw niya nang lumalabas. She'd rather stay home. So, yun, that's very rewarding, knowing na we built, a relationship and a home for her, na she'd rather stay home.
Yeah.
Ganon.
Yeah, for a kid to rather stay home, that's a big deal.
Yeah, sobra. And yung mga kwento ng ibang parents na kahit hindi kami nakatingin, because we've set boundaries for her, na kahit hindi kami nakatingin, sinusunod pa rin niya. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think yun yung, wow, kahit pala hindi kami nakatingin, sumusunod siya.
I recently imposed na bawal na YouTube. Kasi I've noticed na that he started watching things that are not really age-appropriate. I'm kampante in the idea na even if YouTube is still on her iPad, she could watch YouTube if she wants to, even if we're not at home. He doesn't. And I know because I can check. And I know that he doesn't. And para sa akin, napaka-fulfilling na
Oo. Wow.
Mm.
Pwede pala yun friends,
Oo nga.
na
Yeah.
yung kid
Yeah.
talaga susunod. Dapat talagang
Mm.
foundation tama no?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Para
Ako
ma-inculcate
rin,
na.
surprise ako na pwede pala yun. Kasi kung ako rin,
Okay.
gagawin ko lahat. Di naman tingin yung parents ko, gagawin ko lahat. Pero
Correct.
ito, wow, pwede pala yun. Ang galing.
Oh. Wow, okay. So going back to Pastor Roy and Sasa, you're now grandparents. How did you transition from parent to grandparent? Iba na roles
You know, for me, it was like because we have 5 boys,
Boys.
children, all right? It's a basketball team, and I was the only,
Correct.
uh,
You're the muse.
yeah, I was the
Yeah,
only
you're the
female.
muse.
Now, when my grandchildren started coming, we only have one grandson, and
Oh,
his name is Timmy, and he's the oldest. Okay, so
Then
of
all the others
course,
are girls.
I doted on him because he was the first grandson. But
mm-mm.
I longed for the granddaughters, and now we have 5
Granddaughters.
granddaughters. So, I really like dressing them up. I really like, really, I mean, well, our sons know this, but because, things I never did before with the baby girl, I can now do it uh,
Yeah.
to the apo.
Grandchildren.
Yeah. And even for myself, being a father of 5 boys, suddenly we had granddaughters, apo na babae. And they are very, very relational, di ba? So,
Mm.
I developed a very strong relationship with our granddaughters because we never had a daughter. So, and the dynamics are so different. So,
Yeah.
I miss that.
But when it comes to disciplining or that sort of thing, really, it's a change of mindset.
And the difference was, for example, I said, I made many mistakes raising up our sons. So ito yung ngayon yung binabago ko in raising up the grandchildren. Oh,
Ah,
I did this to my children. I cannot do this to my grandchildren. So the mistakes I did sa aking mga anak, doon ko binabawi sa mga apo.
Yes.
ah,
It's a paradigm shift, no? That our grandchildren are not our kids. They're
oo.
someone else's kids.
Yeah.
So, if you understand that role, then, you know,
Okay. Okay. Lorraine, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, because you mentioned transition, and this is very real, especially for younger grandparents, yung mga bagong grandparents out there, or parents who are with us right now, and they're new parents, and of course, that would still make an impact on their parents. So, are there parenting styles that actually apply now with the word grand? So, from parent, magdagdagan na, as you have shared, di mo anak, it's not your kid, but you are involved because you are the grandparents. Can you please describe to us the types that, if there are any, the types of grandparenting styles?
uh, okay, let me tell you first, okay, that in the Bible, there is Proverbs, uh, chapter 17, verse 6. Grandchildren are the reward of the grandparent. Our reward. Enjoy the reward to your fullest. Proverb says, you have a hand in determining future generations of Christians on earth now. Okay? So, knowing that, uh, there are also 5 types. I mean, I read up on it, also the same as parenting. And studies have shown there are also 5 types of grandparents. The
Okay.
formal ones, the ones who are really just very, conservative or very formal. And then
Mm-mm.
we have the ones who are surrogate parents. They want to be, they act like, no, 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 I'm also your daddy and mommy, or something like that. The others are the other category is the fun seeker.
Let's have fun. Let's watch the movies.
Okay,
Mm.
so let's go out. And the other one is the reservoir and family wisdom grandparents. So they're a huge reservoir of
Knowledge.
knowledge, wisdom, etc. And then lastly, we have the distant grandparents as opposed to the formal, no? The formal is very conservative, uh, but still in there. The distant is, uh, how do you call it? How would you express
Not involved.
it? Not involved.
Mm.
Apathetic.
Mhm.
Pastor Roy and Sasa. So, having shared that sometimes it varies from, we've also heard that from Roel and Rabbi. Sometimes, diba, parenting styles varies depending on the season, the age, the circumstance. Now po, looking at your current season with your grandkids, 5 granddaughters, 1 grandson, and you mentioned 5 different types of grandparenting style. Alin po kayo dito, or which ones do you often find yourself in na, oh, I'm being this one? Or which one, if I may add, which one do you want to be more consistently among the 5?
Yeah, wow, that's
We're
a
very
difficult.
different
Yeah.
grandparents.
Usually, well, number one, siguro, of course, the grandparents become babysitter, di ba? For example, Roel and Rabbi would want to go out on a date. So, can we leave Una with you? Oh, yes, anytime. So, when Una comes here, my tendency is to have fun with her. What do you want to do? What can we play? What can we read?
So he's the fun seeker
Fun seeker.
grandparent. While I'm the more on the reservoir and family wisdom grandparent. No, I will. Where are your slippers?
Do you
Oh,
want a new dress?
why don't you have slippers? Did you wash your hands before, eating in the dining table? I'm not like that. So we're very different. But I'm the one also who showers them with the toys.
Yes,
Ah,
spoil the apo.
ang ganda ng combination. Perfect, it balances out, no? Ito, next question to Roel and Pastor Roy. What's the difference ba para sa inyo between parenting and grandparenting?
Siguro
Pastor Roy.
from my side muna,
Uh,
grandparenting actually is a support to the parents. Because
Mhm.
yung role ng parents ay hindi ko pwedeng gampanan yon.
mm-mm.
Anak nila yon, hindi ko anak, di ba? So,
Yes.
for me, my role as a lolo is kung ano yung kakulangan ng parents, doon ako papasok. But very, very delicate situation yan. Because kailangan, I need to ask permission from Roel and Rabbi, di ba? Kung pwede, if I can do that. So, Roel, Rabbi, Sasa, and myself need to have a very close communication. What can I do for the apo with your permission? Di ba? Should I buy her a new cell phone? I have to ask Roel. Roel, does Una need a cell phone? Can I give that to her for Christmas? Or whatever, no? So, kailangan na very close relationship yan. Go ahead. Back to you, Roel.
I think one thing I want to note here, parents, of course, you are the authority. The grandparents, as Dad said, is a support role. One advice I could give parents, young parents especially, like myself, I'm young.
Yes,
Um,
you're young.
do not ignore the support. The grandparents are there for a reason. Like, for example, a very concrete example. Una, like I mentioned earlier, is a very argumentative person. We encourage her to argue. So she would ask all sorts of things. Like just a couple of weeks ago, Daddy, she asked me, if God loves me, why does He allow bad things to happen?
Yan.
So I'm go, Una, your dampa is a pastor. Why don't you ask him?
Buti hindi mo sinabi, go to your room. Hindi naman ganon.
Read
Yeah.
the Bible.
So, use the support. Di ba?
Yeah.
There are things that you don't have to do everything yourself. If you have a good support base, use it.
Mm.
You
Right.
can ask your grandparents for help. When Rabbi and I want to go on a date, or we feel overwhelmed, or it's been a stressful week, I know I can give Dama and Dapa a call. Dama, Dapa, are you busy? Can una stay there? We're going on a date. You know?
Yeah. Oo. So, what if meron kang hindi nagustuhan na ginawa ng grandparents to Una, like they gave her something that you did not want Una to have. So, has that ever happened, or if that does happen, what will you do? How will you handle that?
Going back to what Rabbi said recently, major and the majors, minor and the minors. So there are, like, for example, I think Dama gives Una way too much candy. Yeah. It's a minor thing. It's okay.
Mm.
It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Uh, but let's say, for example, there's a major thing. Do not undermine the authority of the grandparents.
Mm.
Because yes, they are a support authority, but they are still an authority.
Yeah.
You still want the child to have respect for them. So do not
Yeah.
undermine them. You talk to them privately, not in front of the child.
Yeah.
Or if they give the child a cell phone, for example, which you didn't agree with, I don't know. This is uncharted waters for me. I'm not sure if you should take the cell phone away because that might undermine the
Mm.
gift that grandparents gave, or maybe limit their time on it. I don't know. But again, don't undermine the authority of the grandparents then, because they are still an authority. They're still the grandparents.
Mm.
Yeah.
But we haven't given Una
No,
cellphone
Example lang, example.
for the record.
yeah, that's uncharted waters.
Yeah.
Oo. Yeah, no, that's a good advice na you also have to listen to the grandparents kasi there's wisdom, 'di ba? In
Yes.
their experience. So, wag awayin, kausapin.
Mm. Mm.
And thankfully, my in-laws, sila mom and dad, they're not the helicopter kind.
No.
No, they sobrang blessed kami sa kanila na bala kayo dyan. Sa our role is to spoil. Which we don't mind actually. So
Oo.
the kids really enjoyed it. Kahit sila, dito lang kami kila daman-dam pa, ganyan. Kasi they know na, kumbaga, there's comfort sa grandparents. Which okay na okay rin sa amin.
Yeah, nice. So, what exactly are the roles of grandparents, Pastor Roy Sasa?
Sa akin siguro, my role as a lolo and Sasa's role as a lola, number one, yun na nga is to support the parents. Diba? But more than that, I think number one role is to be a spiritual guide to our grandchildren. Psalm 103:17 tells us, from everlasting to everlasting, the Lord's love is with those who fear Him, and His righteousness with their children's children. No, our relationship with the Lord, I think that's number one. We need to pass it on to our children, to our children, and there is a very long-term blessing with that. So, you know what? How I do that? Not by reading them the Bible, but telling them stories about our history with God, how God blessed us, how God solved a prayer request, answered a prayer request with with their parents. In our history as a family, of course, maraming pinagdaanan, di ba? Maraming challenges. So I need to tell those stories to our grandchildren kasi hindi nila alam unless I tell them the story.
Yeah.
Uh, well, let me add to that, no? Our role also as grandparents only, no, would be to be the role model also of unconditional love and grace, because we cannot, Pastor Roy and I, we try not to discipline our grandchildren. If they need this discipline at a certain point, we call the parents. All right, we will have to tell the parents. Then they will be the ones to discipline their child, because we cannot take over that role uh, as grandparents. We need to leave that to the parents. All
Mm.
right. Otherwise, we will be disrespecting
The
the
parents.
parenting styles of the parents. Okay?
Mm.
I think our role as mga lolo and lola is to provide our grandchildren a safe haven
Yes.
Mm.
where they feel loved and protected, di ba? Because these memories, these stories of our relationship with God, we really need to pass on to our children
Yes.
rather than being influenced by social media.
Yeah.
Mm.
But let me also stress, no, that there are boundaries. We 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 unconditionally love them. Sometimes to a point of spoiling them, but always within the boundaries of the parents.
Mm.
Okay. Most of the time. Sometimes I tend to go over when it comes to goodies.
Oh, yung mga chocolates.
Yes, to
Oo.
eating. Kasi, siyempre, no? I mean, we cannot watch them always. And then
Mm.
bigla, oh my gosh, you finished it.
Ah,
Just do that.
right. Naku, nangyayari yan dito din. My kids
Yeah.
finish the one pack of mga tsokolate. Naku, ang
Or
bilis-bilis.
chichirya.
Oo,
And
chichirya. Naku. Okay.
dahil nagkwekwentuhan na pala tayo ng some mistakes, the things we get right and wrong from the parts of parents and grandparents. We're going back to Roel and Rabbi. And we've touched on it a bit already, and we do praise the Lord that you have a good family dynamic with Pastor Roy and Saza. But please do share with us what are the common mistakes grandparents make from your perspective, and if you can elaborate on them a bit since nagkwentuhan na tayo, what are the common ones that you find from the learnings that you have so far as mistakes that grandparents tend to kind of nauulit?
Mm.
Bring it on.
Um,
Don't be
it's
shy.
it's like you I find that a lot of the times big things stem from a compilation of small things.
Mhm.
But you don't have to say the small things are like a deal breaker. Like for example, when mom said na she tends to spoil them when it comes to goodies. Yeah, honestly I don't mind. Basta I tell Rabbi na only gets away with eating so much chocolate
Mm.
when they're tama and dampa.
Yeah.
After that, they have to like dial it down a bit
Yeah.
more just to get her back in line.
Yeah.
But if you compound on that, like grandparents letting children get away with doing things that they're not usually supposed to do as per the parents' rules, and that's a big mistake. If it compounds into bigger things like that. So, for example, I limit Una's consumption of media so that it's not just so I can control what she watches. It's more that I want her to do other things besides
Yeah.
staring in front of a screen the whole day.
Yeah.
I want her to read books, do puzzles, draw, run around, ride her bike. That's the reason why I limit her media.
Mm.
So whenever you send your kid to the grandparents and all they do is sit in front of the TV,
Yeah.
well, they can do that in your house too. Why are they there?
Yeah.
Right. So I
Thank
think that
you.
is it.
Totally agree. Yes, especially when my son was younger, and the moment he comes back to me, he knows all the old movies. So like, what? You know my childhood movies now? So yeah, that's true. Thank you for sharing. But let's go back now to Pastor Roy and Saza. Having learned and shared your mistakes so far and the things you're learning with Roel and Rabbi, Pastor Roy and Sasa, what are the examples of grandparenting mistakes that you see not only from your walk but from the walk you have also with other grandparents?
Siguro well, I think the biggest mistake that grandparents can make is to think that I am a better parent than you, than the
Mm.
parent mismo.
Yes.
So, we will have a tendency na babalik rin natin yung turo ng magulang at bibigyan natin ng ibang turo yung apo. which will
Mm.
undermine the authority of the parents. Or minsan criticizing the parents. Alam mo kasi yung tatay mo ganito, ganyan, ganyan. Very, very big no-no. Or yung nanay mo
Mm.
kasi. So, um, I think what lolos and lolas kailangan malaman natin, we are a supporting role to the parents. 'Di ba? Kung if there are problems with the parents, we need to talk to the parents. Hindi natin i-chismis sa apo, no? That's one. That's only one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also quarreling in front of the kids,
Yes.
contradict
Mm.
what their daddy and mommy say.
Mm.
All
Mm-mm.
right. For example, one grandchild, two are here with us. They arrived last night, and they're staying. Roel, Natalia, and
Pot-pot.
Liana
Mm.
are with us. They arrived last night. So anyway, um, the little girl Natalia was asking me to eat chocolate, and I know, that it was almost sleeping time, and she might
Mm.
be like an energizer
Yeah.
bunny.
Oo.
So I said, you know what? Go ask your dad first. And so she ran to her dad's room, and he said, Dama, 3 pieces only. Okay?
And like 1, 2, 3. Oh, tama na.
And, you know, the little girl was about to get in a handful, and then Dampa goes,
One by one.
only one, not one handful. So
Oh,
it's,
malaking difference yun.
yeah, I made
Mm.
sure that she really followed. We really counted, no?
Or hindi pwedeng, sabi ng tatay mo, 3 lang. O sige, gawin nating 4, 5.
Yes.
Ah, oo. Tsaka hindi rin, I guess the grandparents shouldn't talk bad, no, about the parent. Alam mo yung
Yes.
tatay ko,
Oh,
corny talaga yan
definitely.
eh. O ito, 5, imbis na
That's a
3.
no-no. Definitely, that's a no-no. I'm very, very, very aware of watching PG-rated
Movies.
movies or things with them.
Ay, Tita
Okay?
Sasa, excuse me ah. Hi, Una. I see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Una!
I
Hello!
really thought I could get away with it.
Oh, you can get away with it.
She was
Ayan na.
sneaking around.
Oo, ga.
I just have to
Hello.
do that. That's my
Una,
Natalia
dama
and
nagpakita.
Natalia and Diana are here. When will you come here?
I'm not sure actually.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes, but
Come here
soon
soon.
I can tell.
Alright. Alam mo, si Una mukhang pwedeng lawyer. Na-consider niya na yan.
That's a thought.
Strong siya, strong. Okay, yes, Tita Sasa, you were saying, please continue.
I am very, very careful about watching PG ratings,
Age
no?
appropriate.
Age-appropriate
Movies.
movies. And like, for example, our granddaughter last night wanted to watch cartoons, but it was this horror.
Yeah, horror cartoons. Mm.
Yeah.
And, at night she cannot sleep, and she's so scared. So I said,
Mm-mm.
no, 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 no. We changed the channel right away.
Oo. So even if they think ang corny naman ni Dama, you still change the channel
Yes. I'm
kasi
very,
it's for their
very,
own good.
oh yes, I'm very, very careful of that.
There's a bigger problem also because for many young couples, they live with the in-laws or with the parents, di ba?
Mm.
So, a big problem arises. It's the house of the lolo and the lola. Nakatira yung mga bata and the apo. And there might be a tendency for the lolo or the lola to say, bahay ko to, dapat masunod yung gusto ko. Especially with the apo. So that's a very delicate situation. Again, lolos and lolas, if you are listening, even if your children and their children, yung mga apo nakatira sa inyo, yes, it is your house, but it's not your children. Apo mo na lang yan. We need to respect the parents. Sige, back to you.
Okay, thank you for that. Talagang you need to respect the parents even if nakatira kayo in the same under the same roof. No, kasi nga like what you said, yung grandchildren, children yun ng anak nyo. So dapat respect their parenting style. All right. So I'm pretty sure no you enjoy being grandparents, 'di ba?
Oh,
So for
definitely.
you, oo, yung ano ba yung benefits of grandparenting? You get to give them as much, tapos bahala na yung parents mag-control. Hindi. Ano ba benefits?
I think being Lolo and Lola, for me personally, it's a source of what? Energy and love for me. That the grandchildren, yung mga apo, can spend time with us. It gives me a major boost in uh, energy and smile, because really I don't know why, because I really enjoy time with the grandchildren. Siguro it's a guilt complex also because I didn't spend much time with my children kasi busy with work. But now that I'm older, I have more time in my hands, maybe making up for lost time doon sa mga apo. So, that could be one. How about you, Sasa?
Uh, for me, kasi, naku, the biggest benefit is having to have grandparents, to be a grandparent is having children here in the house, okay, without my having to think of any responsibility or
Yan.
any, you
Yan
know
na
what
nga
I
ba
mean?
sinasabi ko. Yes.
I am not taking any responsibility for their well-being. I mean, as a
Mm.
parent, you know what I
Ah,
mean? So
yes.
it's like I'll play with you, I'll do these things with you, but here, I'll give you back to your parents if you need discipline.
Magulo na. Balik ko na sa iyo.
Oo.
They need discipline. Okay, here you can have her back.
Ang saya ng grandparenting.
Yeah, and you make it sound so rewarding and rewarding in the sense of encouraging. Na parang ang sarap. Ang sarap look forward into having
Sobra.
grandkids someday. And having shared po from your insight that even if you live under the same roof, magkasama kayo sa bahay, mas tama na respetuhin or we give way for parents to actually raise their own kids because as grandparents, they're not your kids in the context of our Filipino culture. Because
Mm.
in other countries, if we would look outside, we would see they have a different dynamics in terms of having your own family setting, especially as they start, right? So in the Filipino culture po, we see a lot of families that live together, especially as parents build up. And sometimes it takes a while for them to move out or sometimes they really stay
Mm.
together. Sa inyo po, from your observation and the things you've studied so far, is it better po ba for parents to live with the grandparents or within one roof? And what are your thoughts on that?
Ideally, talaga, uh, the biblical teaching is in Genesis 2, chapter 2, verse 24. The Bible tells us, a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife. That's the key verse. A man leaves his father. Literally, if you're going to get married, if you're going to have children, the best is move away from your parents' house, have your own household, your own home. That's the
Mm.
ideal. That's the biblical way. However, for many families now, especially with teenagers, premarital sex, teenage parents, teenage pregnancies, and so on, or even for adults, they cannot support yet the standard of living, yung gastos masyadong mahal. So, new parents will tend to live with the grandparents. Ang
Mm.
problema dyan, if the grandparents don't know their role and if the parents also don't know their role, hindi nila alam, nobody is teaching them how to be parents or grandparents, magkakaroon ng alitan. There will be conflict in many, many areas.
Mm.
pa lang, between parents and children, meron ng alitan. Eh ano pa, when the grandchildren come, more
Yeah.
areas of conflict, disagreement. Bakit mo binigyan ng tsokolate? Bakit mo ginawa to? Di ba sabi ko hindi pwede? Eh bahay ko to, dapat masunod ako eh. Things like that. So, um, we need to realize I am not the perfect lolo. And the parents need to realize also, I am not the perfect parent. I need to know better. Kailangan maging mas mabuting lolo or tatay ako. Those are the things that we need to go forward in.
May I also add to that,
Yeah.
no? When the Bible says, live, cleave, and be one, all right, it doesn't only mean physical living. Because our children, some of them stayed with us for a few months or a few years before they were very stable enough to
Have their own
have
homes.
their own homes.
Mm.
Although four of them now do not live with us anymore. Now, live can also mean emotional. You live emotional. You're not dependent on your parents, no? You're not a mama's boy or a mama's girl anymore. Okay?
Yeah.
So that really depends on, what how you also interpret live, because live is not just physical. It's in all aspects.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And now we have to leave this conversation of ours and go to the Q&A portion, because that's one of it's the favorite part of our friends. So if you guys have any questions, please type them to chat box. We'll get them and then we'll put them on the screen and we'll ask them for you. So, okay. So do we have any questions from our viewers? Ayan. Ano ang pinaka nakakainis na ginagawa ng lolo at lola? Magsabi ng totoo. Yes. Roel and Rabbi.
Meron ako isa. Yung inuunahan ka sa favorite ng anak mo. He really wants this thing. And like, okay, bibigay ko sa kanya sa birthday niya. And then, ay binigay na ni Lolo.
Ganon?
Wala.
Nakatahan ako? Okay, so paano yun? Paano yun? What do you do?
Again, major and the majors, minor and the minors. It's a minor thing. It's okay. It's not a cell phone. It's not a laptop. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
It's not a
Is
big
that the
deal.
Oo, pag laptop ang gusto, kay lolo na yun. Huwag na ikaw. Mas mahal eh. Sila nagagastos doon. Okay. Oh, do we have another question? There you go, Lorraine. Would you like to read this?
Yeah, when you see your son making wrong moves in raising the kids, ayan, and this is something I believe that would come from the grandparents with us right now.
Yes.
Pag nakita niyo po your own kids seem to be doing something wrong in their parenting, how do you interfere, or do you even interfere? And if you don't, what's the way around it?
Siguro the important word there is interfere. Literally makialam, di ba?
Yeah.
I think for being grandparents, being lolo and lola, we need to avoid, hindi pwedeng makialam, especially in front of the apo, di ba?
Yeah.
For example, you see your son spanking your apo, hindi pwedeng, anak, itigil mo yan. Kawawa naman yung bata. I think that's a very big
Or
no-no.
after he spanks, you come and embrace the apo.
Kawawa ka naman, ang tatay mo talaga.
That will nullify the
Yeah.
discipline.
So I think if merong ginagawang mali yung tatay at nanay, kausapin mo in private. Talk to them in private. Di ba? In kindness. Hindi mo pagalitan, hindi mo lecturean. You can say, anak, ang observation ko, ginawa mo ito, baka pag-isipan mong mabuti, baka mali yan, kawawa naman yung bata, di ba? In kindness. Because if you don't talk in kindness, mag-aaway kayo. Dad, huwag kami kailam. Di ba? So,
Yeah.
May kwento ako dyan. That's happened to me.
Oh, sige nga.
One time, we were on a family outing. Una did something that got me really angry. I shouted at her. She cried. Mom called me. Roel, can I talk to you? I was really angry. And she said, Roel, I think you're too harsh on me. And, okay, sige, noted na, thank you. And then later, I approached to Nauna. I'm sorry for shouting at you in front of everybody. So, you can speak your, say something, but do it privately, do it kindly. If mommy had told me na, Roel, ano ba yan? Bakit mo sinubukan si Una? I would have like, kasi ganyan. Hindi, mali. Mag-away na.
Mm.
Oh, so yung secret doon was she pulled you aside.
Yeah.
And okay. Kasi ang ganda din nun because I think that's a show of respect. Respect for you as well, even if she's the grandmom. Okay, nice.
And I
Okay,
didn't want and I didn't want the granddaughter to hear what I
Yeah.
was saying.
Oo. Parang like what you said kanina, para hindi mapahiya yung parent. Para yung respect nandun pa rin. Oo nga, sometimes, no, we have to really be careful of that. Nako, mga grandparents, ganun ang dapat. Alright. How do you react when your grandchild makes sumbong to you about their dad or mom? Nako, yes. No, my dad is so strict. Grabe, pinapauwi ako ng 12! 11 nagsasal ng party. O yan, paano yan? Kakainis ang daddy. Nako, what do you say?
I always tell them when they do that, which is rare naman, I
Oo.
always say, you know what? You still have to obey your daddy and your mom. They are your daddy and your mom. And remember, because we were the ones who raised our children, no,
Yeah.
in the three things to decide to discipline
Oo.
their children for. So I
Oo.
always say, you know what? Do you want to disobey your parents or disrespect them? If that
Wow.
is their rule, you have to respect them.
Mhm.
Okay?
Grabe. Tagos naman sa puso yun, Tita Sasa. Do you want to disrespect them? Mapapaisip talaga yung kid, no?
Yes.
Instead of, what if hindi magkasundo, di ba may ganon? I mean, for you, Rabbi, you're really blessed that you're magkasundo kayo ni Tita Sasa. But for the others na hindi magkasundo, yung in-law at saka yung anak, tapos yung grandkid goes to the Lola and says, you know, my mom, she's like this, she's like that. Paano na yan? Tapos yung Lola, syempre, parang tama ka, nakakainis siya. Paano yun? Paano ma-handle?
That's a no-no.
Yeah, that's a no-no. But the reality is, it happens, diba?
Yes.
With many families. So again, I guess we really need to impart to the lolos and lolas. Kailangan malaman ng mga lolo at lola, do not criticize your children. Do not side with the apo if they're making sumbong. I think whatever happens, respect mommy and daddy. Okay? If it's really a bad situation, that it will inflict danger to the apo, lolo and lola, kausapin niyo yung magulang. Just like what Roel shared. Anak, baka hindi maganda para sa bata ito. It might not be for their good. Diba? But you appeal. Don't make the decision for them. Hindi pwede. Hindi pwede yan. Hindi naman. Diba?
So kumbaga kahit na ayaw mo yung daughter-in-law mo, you still need to respect their decisions.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Bite your tongue.
Definitely. And I try to really foster good relationships with all my daughters-in-law.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So here we go, Lorraine.
We have another one, and this one asks, paano ko po magandang i-approach ang anak regarding his Christian life? Medyo daw nanlalamig po ang Christian life ng anak niya, which I also get to know na may problem na sa attention na hindi nila nabibigay sa anak nila. So ito po ay super, nag-start na tayo sa case-to-case basis questions. Ang scenario po, naglalamig po ata ang walk ng kanilang anak and that they think attention is not given enough. Any input po, Pastor Roy and Sasa?
Maybe I'll pass it to Roel
Roel, how do we
and Rabbi.
remind you? Rabbi.
I'd say, it starts really from home. I remember yung favorite part ko ng reunion with sila mom and dad sa bahay is whenever dad would gather us, tapos merong Bible study. Very short and sweet. Hindi naman in-depth. So magbabato lang si dad ng sa amin. And then we'd discuss, we'd share. I think yun yung sa nagtatanong, I think yun yung magandang simulan ninyo. Invite your kids over and their families and you start a Bible at kahit a small Bible study sa bahay ninyo. It doesn't have to be like an in-depth na sobrang
Our discussion.
yeah, no. Sharing lang. I think that's very good na. You can start from there.
And then,
Yeah.
siguro if I may add, yung paniniwala natin sa Diyos, hindi natin pwedeng ipilit sa mga anak natin or even sa apo natin. All we can do is, because the relationship with the Lord is a personal decision. It's not my decision. Hindi ko
Right.
pwedeng sapilitan yon. My only role is to show them a picture of God. Ito ang Diyos ko. 'Di ba? Sana masundan mo, pero hindi kita mapipilit, 'di ba? This is what God has done for me. And for lolos and lolas or even parents, if you feel that your child needs the Lord, you pray for them. Huwag mong lecturean. Pagdasal mo, iluhod mo. No? That's about it.
Malaki nagagawa ng prayers no? We take it
Oh,
for
yes.
granted, but actually, that's where the power and the wisdom come from
I
Yeah.
remember in Roel's life, there was a time in Roel when he had a very, anong tawag niyan, wild
Yeah.
life. And I did not know already, give up na ako. Lord, sabi ko, hindi ko na kaya si Roel. So niluluhod ko si Roel. I would really kneel down. Lord, please, gumawa ka ng paraan. And you know what? Yung answer sa prayer ko, dumating si Rabbi sa buhay niya.
Wow!
Yung
Galing
hindi ko magawa, nagawa ni Rabbi. Aba, tumino si Roel dahil kay Rabbi. So,
Oh my God!
pray ko.
That's true. That's true.
Rabbi, that's a true story, ha?
That's a very
100%. 100%.
Wow! Galing, Rabbi! Alam mo, nakikita ko nga yung difference sa mukha niyo Si si Roel, gimikero. Itong si Rabbi, very malumanay.
Level-headed.
Oo, very
Ang
good.
malumanay. Heard it.
So, Roel, I really thank God for Rabbi. For,
Yeah.
Me too.
Praise God. Ako sayang, kakatapos lang ng February, yung Valentine's. Okay. Ito. Nako, from Sam Clowy. Can you ever spank an apo as a grandparent? That's a good question. I think you kind of answered this kanina, pero
Yes.
sige, just answer it again. Pastor.
Personally, we refrain from doing so and let the parents do it. But we will not let the situation go until we tell the parents. All right?
Hindi mo rin pwedeng itago sa parents. Huwag mo na sabihin sa nanay tatay mo, ha? No, you need to tell her, this is what she did. She disrespected me. She shouted. She lied. Then let the parents handle it.
Yes. But we also call the attention of the apo.
Yeah.
No? We also say, hey, you know what? That was not good. I'm sorry. I'll have to tell your dad and mom about this.
Oh, so hindi kayo yung tipong, I have to spank now kasi kung hindi, parang mawawala na yung
That's
effect.
not
They'll
our
nangyari.
role. That's not our role.
Okay. So you just tell
Thank
the
you.
grandkid, I'm going to tell your parents.
Mm.
Okay. Yes, Lorraine.
I have a question also before we read the next one. This is something that I believe would speak to a lot of families who are with us live or later on when they watch the replay. When cracks and hurts have already happened between the grandparents and the parents, and we do know the scenario where the kids will say, "Oh, how come I can't visit?" or "When are we staying longer?" Ganyan. Um, how can they begin po to reconcile? Kasi
Wow.
nagkakamali talaga eh. It could be the parents, could be the grandparents, could be the child sometimes. Sometimes it's our kids talaga who's the challenge in between. Paano po kaya masisimulan for them to get the rhythm better and reconcile?
Mm.
Thanks, Lorraine. I think that question is very applicable to many, many families now. There are already alitan, may samaan na ng loob between parents and grandparents. And we don't really know how to move forward. I guess my advice lang is, as parents, we need to accept that we made mistakes, even as grandparents. Because the conflict, yung alitan, hindi maaayos yan unless somebody makes the first move. So my advice is, grandparents, if you have differences with your children and you cannot visit the apo, etc., ang suggestion ko, you make the first move. Diba?
Always
How do you make the first move, sa?
humble yourself and say, "Hey, is there anything wrong?
Mm.
Nasaktan ba kita?
Nasaktan ba kita? What did I do?" Always reach out. And we as parents, I as a parent, I do that.
And then we ask forgiveness. What we really need is humility. I made a mistake. Anak, nasaktan kita. Can you please forgive me? Anak, nasaktan kita dahil dinisrespect kita when I was talking to your apo, to the apo. 'Di ba? Criticize kita in front of your child. Can you please forgive me? I won't do it again.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And then
Mm.
if you are told what is wrong, you accept it. You zip your mouth and you don't defend yourself. And you just apologize.
Mahirap gawin.
It's hard.
Mm-mm. Sabi nga nila, 'di ba, in God's game, kung sino yung mas humble, siya yung panalo. Compared to kung sino yung mataas ang tingin sa sarili. Okay.
I'd like to
All
hear
right.
from Roel and Rabbi, though.
Yeah, sure.
What if it's the
Um,
other way around? What if you have something against us?
the grandparents. I mean,
What?
I think what you said is very appropriate. A lot of people, when there's a rift between two parties, the tendency is, you're
Correct.
dead to me.
Sa uli ng kandila.
Sulian ng kandila. And that's happened. I mean, I'm not a perfect person. That's happened to me. Like, I remember so simply, there was a rift that happened between Rabbi's father and myself a long time ago. And you just have to humble yourself. Make the first move. Admit that you, kahit na siyempre, sa utak ko, hindi, kasi mali siya. Di ba? At the same time, you have to admit that you're not a perfect person. I'm sure you did something.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. Kasi yung most, di ba, especially when you come from the earlier generation, bakit ako ang magsasorry? Anak lang siya. Dapat siya ang mag-sorry. Di ba? May ganon.
Mas matanda ako.
No,
Oo,
there's
mas
no
matanda
such
ako.
thing. If
Yeah.
you're wrong, you're wrong. Or if you hurt them, then you apologize.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, Lorraine.
Yeah, we have one last question and then we will be hearing more, don't worry. But one last question for this Q&A. This is also still from Sam Clowy, and thank you for participating. Sabi niya,
Yeah.
how can I deal with the absentee grandparents with their apo? Oy, oo nga. A good question din po. Paano naman kung si grandparents ang talagang absentee? Paano po natin ma-adjust ang ating kids to that also?
Roel, Rabbi, would you like to, if any of us have been absent or have been distant or whatever?
No. My advice is, again, the grandparents are support role. Does that mean you can do your role as a parent without support? Yeah, of course, it's better if there's support. And if you really want the support of your parents, of your children's grandparents, you have to make the first move. You have to, hey, for example, hey, dad, I want you to be more involved with Una, for example. And you make the move. For example, Una has a school event. You invite the grandparents. Hey, dad, can you go with Una to the school event?
Yeah.
So you make the first move and you try to get them involved. Because sometimes it may be that they want to get involved, they just don't know how.
Yeah, yeah. That happens also. And also siguro as parents, kung absentee yung grandparent, wala, um, you have a role to explain to the child kung bakit na hindi sisiraan i-explain mo yung sitwasyon ng grandparent kung bakit wala silang parte sa buhay ng bata, yung ganon, or hindi nila masyado nakikita. So para naiintindihan ng bata kung bakit gano'n. Kasi may mga times din na, kunyari sa mom ko, sa mother ko, madalas na sobrang siguro once every 3 months lang. So my child would usually be the one to call her, ganon. So I always tell her na si Una na ikaw nang mag-reach out sa grandparent mo. Kung hindi kaya ni Lola, ni Lolo, di ikaw. Kumustahin mo siya. And actually, mas na-appreciate nila na usually, magte-text sa akin na, hindi na ako tinatawagan ni Una. So, sila na mismo yung nagka-clamor na, ba't di na ako tinatawagan ng apo ko? Yung ganon. So, yeah. I think that's one way.
Oo. That's a good advice, no? Kung hindi ka kinakausap, edi ikaw tumawag.
Yeah.
Pwede naman eh. Oo. Thank you. Alright, so Pat Barredo, Manda, CPS, ang Diyos ba, gaya natin bilang tatay, ay namamalo din at sa panong paraan niya tayo pinapalo? Salamat.
Oo,
Pastor
namamalo.
Roy.
Namamalo si God. Ingat ka. Ingat ka.
Tinginan si Rabbi tsaka si Roel. Oo.
Maraming beses na tayo.
Yeah.
Yeah, God, di ba the Bible tells us God disciplines those He loves. Bilang anak ng Diyos, yes, merong discipline ng Panginoon. It can be in the form of sickness, financial difficulties, relationship difficulties, maraming paraan. You may have lost your job and maybe God is disciplining you. I don't know.
Masakit talaga.
Masakit,
Minsan.
mamalo siya ang Panginoon. No?
But He always does it
In love.
in love. He always does it because He loves us. At gusto niyang matuto tayo ng leksyon natin.
Ang
Kung
problema,
anong kailangan natin matuto.
ang problema ko, nakikinig ba ako? Kasi minsan pinapalo na tayo, pero hindi tayo nakikinig.
Or minsan, akala natin napaka-harsh naman ni God.
Bakit si God ganun?
Bakit si God ganun? Pero hindi talaga natin alam na mahal na mahal na mahal tayo.
May kasabihan kami sa D-group namin. When God is knocking on your door, you better answer it. Because if you don't, He might bring your entire house down just to get you to answer.
Yeah. Kasi love tayo ng God. Diba?
Yes.
That's why He wants our attention. Yes. I thank you so much, Patrolman Barreto, for that question. All right.
And super heartwarming itong conversation natin kasi we've touched a lot on not just parenting, right? But also grandparenting and the realities of how our lives intertwine and makes an impact not just on our family dynamics, but essentially to the kids and the way they're brought up into their adulthood. So as we wrap up po, Pastor Roy and Sasa, this is for you. If there's one important advice that you'd like our grandparents or our parents, as they also prepare to be someday, by God's grace, be grandparents? Ano po yung takeaway na pwedeng mabitbit nila from this part of our conversation?
Siguro, my our takeaway is if you are a lolo and a lola, develop a very good relationship with your children. With your children muna, di ba? If you are a parent, develop a close relationship with your children. Kasi hindi pwedeng, ay, malayo na kami ng anak ko,
You
doon na lang ako sa apo magde-develop ng relationship. Hindi pwede.
Yeah.
Because we cannot jump. Diba? So my suggestion is, if your children are adults already, make the move. Kung merong alitan, mauna ka na. Diba? Now, this is my advice. Because sometimes we don't know how. Sabi nga ni Roel, we don't know how to develop a close relationship with our children. So here's a book that I recommend for all of you. This is called Motivate. Motivate book. This is by Pastor Ptr and Deona Tanchi about how they raise their kids. It's a very instructional guide on how we can develop relationships with our children. I suggest you get this book. It's in Lazada. Hindi dahil pinopromote ko tong book na to. It's in Lazada for about 300 pesos. And this is my anong tawag niyan? My manual. This is my manual, aside from the Bible, on how to develop relationships with our children and grandchildren. If you have difficult relationships with your children, mahirap ayusin, you need God and you need to find out ways on how to do it. Go ahead, Sa.
Me, simple, savor, enjoy, and just, well, not really spoil, but how do I call it? Freely just love your grandchildren, because they are the future leaders of their
Yes.
generation.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much. How about Roel and Rabbi? What do you wish to impart to the young parents and would-be parents sa audience natin ngayon?
Same. You cannot expect to develop a good relationship with your children if you don't have a good relationship with your parents, because it's hand in hand. You are the children of your parents. How do you expect your children to treat you is directly related to how you treat your parents. Yeah, you will know a tree by its fruit. If you want your children to respect you, you respect your parents, and develop those relationships. And use the support that your grandparents provide you. They're not just there to spoil your children. They're pretty useful.
Take
Yes.
all the help that you can get.
Yes. Nako, talaga. Okay. So, and that's coming from the number one problem child of Pastor Roy. Di ba? Develop relationship with the parents.
He
Important.
used to be.
Yes.
He used
Oh,
to be.
used to be. Correct. Correct. Oh,
The
wait na nga
phone.
ng itsura ni Roel eh. Thank God for Rabbi. Di ba? Okay. So thank you so much. So to sum it up, our takeaway should be this: be on the safe side when it comes to parenting and grandparenting. Let's involve God. Let's do it the biblical way, so that it'll work out, right? So thank you so much to our gracious guests, Pastor Roy, Sasa, Ruel, and Rabbi. We enjoyed talking to you and we learned so much from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chiki and Lorraine.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chiki, Lorraine, and Roel, and Rabbi. Rabbi, thank you. I know this is your time. Thank you.
Ayan, next time maririnig na namin yung drummers, yung pag-drum mo, ha? Special, ano yan, special part. Live to the max. Thank you.
Thank you, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the next ones.
Okay.
All right. So we would like to remind everybody na yung social media is there for you, available. If you have friends that you want to share this episode to ayan ho. You can see it on your screen. We are on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And also please don't forget to join the Zoom breakout rooms later. Ayan ho yung Zoom details on your screen. If you do not have an existing group yet, please join room number 1. And then if you're new dito and you have no idea, paano ba ako pupunta sa group ko? Paano ba pupunta sa group 1? Somebody will help you ho. Ilagay nyo lang ho sa chat box ng Zoom that you need help and we'll be there to help you because it's so important that you join a group kasi talagang you'll learn from them and you'll be encouraged and inspired to look to Jesus. All right? Thank you,
And
Lorraine. My
yeah,
friend.
also, before we get to the questions, let's stand by. We're going to flash on our screen. We're going to see, Ayan, we have some needs that we would like for you to pray for and consider. Life to the Max needs volunteers who really want to do this for the Lord. And this is backroom tech, creatives team, speaker care, the group leaders, care assistants, and social media management. So if you would look at your screen and if you can take a screen cap, pray and consider, or if somebody would be helpful for these areas, you might want to let them know that Life to the Max needs volunteers. We also have another thing that we would like to remind you. It is the monthly schedule of the broadcast of Life to the Max. So ito po ay every second and fourth Monday. So let's take note, every second and fourth Monday, you can watch Live to the Max broadcast. And also the next schedule, save the date, it's April 10, 2023. So we are excited to see you for the next session. And now we will also be picking up from the discussion guides as we hope you join the Zoom conversation. We will see the questions that will be what you will talk about further as we reflect and internalize what we have for today. So do watch out for our next event. And as we get these guides along our Life to the Max, be safe and God bless you.
Bye, everyone.